My friends, 45-second message from me to you about an app I've been using recently called Kaizen, because as runners, we know the stress of trying to stick to a rigid training plan is nearly impossible if running is not your full-time job, which for most of you out there, it's not. And there's this remarkable app called Kaizen that I've recently started using. They literally invented a whole new training system designed to fit training around the complexities of modern life. You download the app, I put in a goal race date, distance, and time, and it spits out an incredibly personalized training plan that will allow me to hit that training goal amidst the complexities and busyness of life. And they were gracious enough to give me and this community 14 days free on the app with code RUNEFFECT. That is code RUNEFFECT. I'm confident that you guys are going to love this app. I only work with companies that I truly believe in. I've loved the app thus far, and if you use it, let me know how you like it. I'm confident this will help you not only hit your race goal faster, but also be more peaceful in the process. So code RUNEFFECT for 14 days free on Kaizen.
It is important you get food in, no matter what. Like when you finish your session, you do not benefit from that session without adequate nutrition. That is one of the biggest rules I can absolutely lobby right now. So therefore, the idea of eating before 4:30 is unrealistic to those people. But number one is you have to get the food in. Two, if you are training late, you still need to eat after that workout to support the recovery means and requirements.
The Aussie is back. The man himself, Dan Churchill, returns to the podcast today to break down how the most elite athletes in the world train and eat. Dan is a former professional chef, or whatever the verbiage would be there. He knows a thing or two about food, about nutrition, and about how to train at a high level, not just from his own life, where the dude is an absolute specimen. He's jacked, he runs fast, he does Hyroxes, he's run 100 miles at the Leadville 100, all sorts of different accomplishments. But he also spends time around some of the biggest and best athletes in the world. He has personal relationship with being the former personal chef to Lindsey Vonn, Olympic medalist, I believe, and also is friends with a lot of the BPN community that I'm a part of, from Nick Baer to Lucy Davis to Mitch Ammons. He has seen up close and up front how these athletes train and how they specifically eat, and we break that down in today's conversation and more. If you enjoy it, hit the follow button so you don't miss more conversations like this in the future. Share the podcast with a friend so we reach more people and hopefully have greater impact in this world. And make sure you give us a 5-star review. It takes 3 to 5 seconds. I hope you guys are doing well. Gearing up for a big Christmas. I appreciate you all. I love you all. I love this community, and I hope you guys are benefited today by the wisdom of the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Dan Churchill. Ladies and gentlemen, he's back, the legend from Australia, who is faster than me, better looking than me, stronger than me, knows a lot about food, has a lot of wisdom from all the athletes he works with, and excited to chop it up with him again. Ladies and gentlemen, Dan Churchill. How you doing, Dan?
Dude, way to make my head bigger than the video screen. I appreciate it, man. Always good to chat, man. Always good and inspired by what you're continuing to strive with, man. It's pretty exciting, dude.
So I try to go to the sauna, cold plunge a few times a week. Yes, I'm one of those guys, which you'll respect. Some of my audience might think I'm a little cuckoo for doing. And first half of the sauna, I generally try to listen to some classical music, clear the head. But then second half, when it gets hot, I'll do like 15 to 20 minutes sauna, 2 to 3 minutes cold plunge, and then do that again. And so the second round, I'm dying a little bit, need some motivation. A few months ago, came across a lot of your YouTube videos, and in these, and I highly recommend the audience checks them out, you'd kind of like live and train and eat with an athlete for a day. And you did it with a lot of people I know. So I'm very curious, what are some of the biggest insights you gleaned from spending a day with some of the top athletes in the world?
You know, one of the biggest, I think the biggest I saw is actually how different every athlete is. And I know it sounds like, you know, maybe a little obvious, but truthfully, I mean, there's people who stop eating at certain times of the day, which is abnormal. There's people who don't eat well. There's those who train for the same modality or the same goal in a given sport, but train completely different. I think the one thing they all have in common is how dedicated and intentional they are. So on one hand, the road to get there uncovers different challenges. They go through different types of fields, different terrain, but they're all aiming to get to the same mountaintop with the same intention, which I think is really, quite metaphorical I look for everything in life. And as I continue to look at not just athletes, but high performers in general, the one thing I definitely see is consistent is the way people are able to be intentional towards that goal. So yeah, I feel very fortunate, dude, that every episode I get to do for this YouTube channel is like train and eat with a mate, because I still get to learn so much from them.
You also get to do things you do already that day. It's like if they ever run or a workout, you check that off, call it work. Love it, man. Who was the most impressive one, would you say?
Most impressive.
Like where you got to the end of that day and you were like, that was insane.
Far out, man. Look, I think what impresses me the most isn't those athletes that can smash 3 workouts a day. It's those who can do the 3 workouts a day and still maintain a business or a relationship. Like for example, watching Mitch Ammons, who's just gone 2:14 something in CIM, so he's qualified for the Olympic qualifiers, which is an incredible feat. And watching him be a real estate agent, a loving partner, and also just this genuine dude. And I think he impressed me because of where his story is unfucking believable. Like to go from this, he calls it like lying drug addict to like where his parents didn't know about it, to having to go to rehab, and he's completely changed his life. Like he's not someone that's trying to be on top of the High Rocks podium for the accolades, which is in itself so impressive. He obviously wants to be the best performing marathon runner he can, but he is a pure example of the power of what the world of health and wellness can achieve, and what it does to people's life. And I think if I'm looking at everyone I've trained with, from Nick Bear, which his balance is like unbelievable, and his intentionality to not only like his family, his religion, everything is just really impressive, to Jake Dearden, to Hunter McIntyre, like the best of the best in their given field. And I still keep coming back to Mitch more because of how inspiring his story is.
You gotta say though, he eats like shit, right? That was his thing with me.
Yeah, like he actually does. Like when you look at it from a scale, this is what's crazy. So Mitch stops eating at 4:30 p.m., which we did a study. Or we didn't do a study. We researched a paper, and we put this in my newsletter about 2 weeks ago that reflected on how eating earlier can have has been shown to have a much better effect on your insulin balance before going to sleep, your cortisol level, and get you into a deeper sleep much more efficiently. So when I look at that and see Mitch going, what he's doing, I'm like, I can't do that because my last workout finishes at 4:30. So I'm like, I got to eat after that. But if you take a step from that and go, well, maybe if we just try to eat a little bit earlier, that's practical. Maybe that rather than eating at 7:30, it's like a 6:30 maybe. But yeah, his type of food isn't the most ideal, but he just ran a 2:14. Maybe he could be like a 2:05 runner if he ate a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. How much do you think it actually matters for someone like that? Like if you were to be in control of his diet for a full marathon training block, do you think you'd see substantial changes, or do you think it's the Coca-Cola he drinks every day that makes him fast?
I definitely think we would have, without doing all the blood tests and the gut tests. So like I'd like to not look at stool, but assess stool. I'd like to assess his gut microbiome, and also his micronutrients deficiencies. I mean, that's going to be a telling sign, right? I dare say he's inefficient in a couple of things that would have definitely helped his performance. But he's obviously, his ability to break down sugars simply and utilize them is quite high. So his ability to work with what he's got is amazing. I think something we miss often in this space is training as an athlete, you are required to eat simpler carbohydrates and less certain fats. And so the quality of your food at times isn't typically as good for, say, your wellness and overall nutrition, which can be misleading for that individual when they're not in a block or when they stop training. And so that's something I'm very, very cautious of. There's athletes I've worked with who retire, and we have to do a really good job of just making sure they're educated in what they should be doing. Because ultimately, athletes these days call it 45 at the very latest, which is pretty old. That's still pretty young in the spectrum of life. And so you're looking at what their daily average dietary fiber intake, their omega-3s, what their B12 looks like. So not the macronutrients, more the micronutrients. And what you're trying to prevent is the onset of things like colon cancer. Obviously, energy and vitality is really important. Skin health is a reflective agent of how good your nutrition is, how much hydration you are having. So I think to answer your question, I do think if his diet was a little better, he could see some improvement. But sometimes the thought process of changing things up is more challenging on the body than just initiating what you already know.
Speaking of that study you mentioned, and in relation to Mitch eating at 4:30, how would you quantify that for the athletes who need to eat so much food that they need to have a bedtime snack? Or I think of a lot of high school cross country athletes listening who they come home from practice and school and they're super hungry, so they have a meal and then they do homework and then they're hungry before bed. How do you balance those two worlds?
Yeah, look, I think the most important thing is to get food in more than not. So what I mean by that is I got to eat sometimes on a big load day. My big volume days, I'm a 5,200 calorie guy, right? And I'm not going to do that by getting everything done before 4:30. It's just not going to happen. Unless I want to feel really uncomfortable and go to bed feeling awkward. So the most important thing is to get the food in that you require, without a doubt. That's just been proven. The second thing I would say is when it comes to, you kind of noted bedtime snacks, so I do want to double click on that. I think one of the things that I've been doing the last year, and the research suggests so, is getting a really basic cereal. So basic cereal, I'm talking your cornflakes, your Special K, something that hasn't got a ton of, call it fun crap in it. Not when I say fun crap, I mean the bells and whistles. Just get a plain cereal, get water and protein, and what you get from that is you're not having milk, which has got a bit of fat in it, which can slow down digestion. You're having protein and carbohydrates in its pretty simplest form. And I've forgotten her name off the top of my head, oh my lord, but she studies sleep, and she noted that cereal in this format is one of the best things you can have if you still need nutritional needs before bed. So that's kind of my late night snack if I do need it. Before bed, I typically have Greek yogurt, peanut butter and honey, but then I will at times, particularly in those higher volume weeks, have cereal before bed. Now, if I'm a cross country, or if I'm a student, and I finish my second session, which sometimes finish at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, it is important you get food in, no matter what. When you finish your session, you do not benefit from that session without adequate nutrition, and that is one of the biggest rules I can absolutely lobby right now. So therefore, the idea of eating before 4:30 is unrealistic to those people. So, but number one is you have to get the food in. Two, if you are training late, you still need to eat after that workout to support the recovery means and requirements. And then late night snack, definitely look into, if you do require the most basic, lowest sugar possible, product of a cereal, and add protein and water.
I think for running, it's a little bit different where you can almost get away with a bad diet. In the case of Mitch, I think there is a quote that is half true, which is, if the engine's burning hot enough, you can burn nearly anything. I think to extents that can be true. What I'm fascinated to ask you is more so in the, your sort of world where you're trying to build muscle while also do some of these endurance feats, or we're talking about Nick or a lot of the other like a Lucy Davis, and it's they care way more than just their running or their high rocks. For those people, how crucial is nutrition? Because the people I look up to on social media who look ridiculously good and are ridiculously healthy, it seems their attention to detail with nutrition is everything, even more so than the workouts.
Yeah, I would say when your wellness, I mean, like everybody should have the same, honestly, in my opinion, everyone should have the same feeling, whether you're a runner, athlete, non-athlete. Eating right for the rest of your life is crucial, right? It's important. If you look at like, let's bring up Lucy for a second. Like Lucy's a woman, right? Women, beautiful creatures, us blokes don't have to worry about the adjustments in hormones like they have. So, you know, we honestly, as guys, are pretty basic. These women have extraordinary abilities to create children inside of them, right? So all this means is guys pretty much float pretty consistently throughout the month, where women have to adjust certain weeks. They should be adjusting what they eat on certain weeks to not only account for their athletic performance, but their physiological performance too. So it's honestly even more crucial for women that we make sure they're getting enough the iron, the micronutrients, like the additional starchy carbohydrates in the week. So I always, whenever I speak to a woman athlete, I'm in awe, first off. Secondly, I'm always really captivated by how intentional they are, not for the performance-based part of the nutrition, but the wellness-based part of the nutrition. So, you know, and that's like two separate things, because, you know, performance is a lot about meal timing, simple carbs, getting the protein in, minimizing fat around your workout, still getting enough fat when you're not doing a workout so you're not slowing down digestion. Wellness is making sure you're getting the dietary fiber in and an assortment of the micronutrients. So, you know, I think that's kind of when I look at athletes in general, I always advocate for both those different buckets. But particularly with women, I'm even more heavy on the latter, because it gets neglected so much. And, for those women lose their cycle, particularly during stressful environments, physical stress for, maybe they're training super intensely, but getting it back on track has always been a personal goal of mine. I think it's a great indication of health for a woman is having a consistent cycle. So, anyone listening here right now who's male or female, I think my biggest advocate is like, are you getting enough dietary fiber in on top of the performance-based means? So if you're a runner, I always say this in general, runner or not, everyone should be aiming for 34 grams of dietary fiber every single day. So, I think that's important to hit no matter what type of stage of athletic individual you are. But, maybe again, it's if you are an athlete who's training twice a day, just minimizing the fiber intake around those workouts, because then obviously you get a bit of an upset stomach.
What are some of your favorite foods or supplements or different things you yourself use that are high in fiber and help you hit that target?
Yeah, so I think, general vegetables and fruit. Fruit is the nature's candy, is unbelievable. Pineapple, whole fruit, berries. I have berries every day, like frozen or not. Bananas. Honestly, fruit and veggies. I'd say as athletes, we probably lean in more on fruit because it's easier for us to get those simpler carbohydrates into our system. So there's that. And then vegetable-wise, I smash everything from sours to greens, and I do like I do love my kimchi and fermented foods, but you can't have those around workouts. They really upset your stomach. Supplement wise, obviously massive advocate for AG1. We've got some unbelievable pre and probiotics in that one. But I think there's nothing still beating fruit and vegetables. It's just, I also don't know somebody as well who doesn't like either or. Like, you might not be a massive fan of vegetables, but you're going to love fruit. So, big fan of that.
I want to go back a few minutes ago to something you said that stood out. You were talking about how skin can kind of reflect the quality of your nutrition. Can you share more on this?
Yeah, I think, it's really, unless you get blood work done, it's hard to see what's actually going on internally. You can feel it. But objectively, when you see that your iron, your B12 or your vitamin C is low, you're like, okay, shit. I see that as a hard number. I need to do something about that. So there's one thing. The other side to it is physically. Like, we can see that if we're not getting enough protein, we can become what's called skinny fat, where like you are lean, but there's a massive gap between your muscle and, say, your skin. That's just a build-up of adipose tissue, but because you've got no lean mass. Then you've got other terms of physical, attention. So like, if your skin becomes either, it doesn't look hydrated, doesn't look plump as it should. I'm not going to talk to the likes of acne and things like that, because there are multiple reasons as to why that can come about. Could be some sort of inflammatory situation with your gut, and maybe a response to something you're not typically, breaking down well. But you can see those people who are, in their late 40s, who are healthy individuals and active, and you look at someone who's not, and you can see a distinction in how their skin is. It's much more toned, it's much more vibrant, it's less baggy. There's those kind of things that are indicative of a healthy individual. So I always say that, you can't be completely accurate when you're looking at certain things observationally. You just don't know what's going on internally. But a healthy individual with their skin, bright and hydrated is a great indication of health in general.
So many different avenues to go down from here, but something I was thinking, because you yourself are obviously, anyone who doesn't know or follow you, ridiculously jacked, and also you do a lot of endurance sort of events. I think we talked about this in our first episode, but quite frankly, it was years ago, so I do forget some of the substance. Are you surprised, looking back on your life, that you are as passionate about endurance and lifting weights as you are today?
I think I'm definitely surprised about the endurance side, because I'm a rugby player at heart. So playing rugby it's endurance without a doubt, but it's like contact sport. It's high intensity, so you're running at repeated bouts of sprinting over time, and then you're still playing for 80 minutes of football. So it's obviously endurance to a capacity, but like, I remember running my first half marathon, let alone marathon, and then that was intense. Like, my calves burned up, and just the most painful thing. I remember lying in bed. And now I do 2 half marathons a week. So like, it's just like on an easy day. So it's crazy to reflect on that. But what excites me is, if I look at where I was with health, say, in my 20s, to say now in my 30s, like, I have this unbelievable passion for hybrid, call it whatever you want. It's just genuine activity. I love it. And the idea of running a marathon to me is fun. The idea of going to do 100 miles in Leadville is a challenge that is fun. Training for my first ever Ironman, fun. Like, it is really interesting to always reflect on what you can push your body to do. And so if I look back at, it's even like, I remember my mate telling me his dad, when we were like 16 years old, like, yeah, dad runs like 10 kilometers every day. And I'm like, fuck, that guy's a savage. And like, now we're those people. You know what I mean, dude? Like, it's crazy to think that. But I'm also not shy to note the evolution of running, evolution of hybrid, and I think the community behind it. When I was 8 years ago, it was really hard to tell people, like, what do you do? I'm like, I don't really go to gym classes, but I lift in the gym, and then I go run a little bit. Like, it wasn't this concept of hybrid training, where now it's like a thing. So it's like easy to relate to people on it. And all my close friends are in the space. Like, you and I connect on this level. Some of my best friends, like Nick, and like the guys from BPN, and then even my friends who I get to see twice a year, but I'm so close with because of the industry, also in this space. So I think I love that. I love the community it's brought me.
What, in your mind, is the biggest thing you'd like to accomplish in this space before you theoretically hang it up? Like, a lot of the Olympic level athletes, awesome, that question. I'll say before you hang up the spike. So whatever that metaphor is for you before you feel like your peak is over and you don't have a good shot at it. What's the thing you really want to do?
Dude, it's funny. I just did my like yearly planning, so I got my calendar and did the whole year plan, and it was all like action based, not outcome based. And what I mean by there's two different types of goals, and I say to the team, it's like we may have an outcome goal, which would be like, I don't know, run a sub 3 hour marathon. But like, and whilst that is within our control, there's certain things that you can do leading up to that are actionable to get to that goal. So that's an outcome-based goal. The actionable goals are hit your numbers every single week, hit your tempos every single week. You can say the same for YouTube. It's like, look, getting to X amount of subscribers is an outcome goal. But how do you do that? It's like, well, posting videos that are quality. So how do we control that? So I guess what I'm saying, and the reason for that is I've set my actionable goals. I actually haven't set my outcome goals yet. And I don't want to say like what my, the next few years, what I want to do that would make me satisfied. I think honestly right now, in the short term, all I can truthfully think about is I just did my VO2 and I did my lactate threshold test. And both of those combined put me in a spot where I can do a 245 marathon. Wow. Based on those. The problem, and this is why running marathons and any modality is fantastic, is whilst your anaerobic and your aerobic system may be a part of the ability to execute, they're not the whole thing. And you need multiple things to work. My hamstring issues, my hamstring strength and my flexibility, etc., is so bad that it holds me back from actually achieving that. So aerobically and anaerobically, super fit, but I'm struggling to be able to hit those numbers because of my hamstrings. So my point leads me to right now, I don't know what my actual capacity is because of my hamstrings. My immediate future is to fix them, grow them, and then run a 245 marathon or whatever. But I'd like to be competitive at Ironman. I'm doing that seriously. And then High Rocks, like we want to go to Worlds. I'd like to run a sub 60 at High Rocks. I think that's something I really want to do. If I'm thinking about one outcome, it'd be that.
Quantify for people and also for me. I hear the number sub 60 at High Rocks like I hear sub 3 in a marathon. I understand sub 3 in a marathon. I don't understand sub 60 in a High Rocks.
Sure. So, look, like this is probably not the most accurate way to put this, but it's a way of doing it. So I'd say you've got like your people who are going to win your marathons are like your 202s, 204, like 2 or 3 marathon runners, right? Then you've got the people who are like Olympic qualifiers who aren't full-time but are full-time. They run 215, right? Relative. If you were to put sub 60 in the same character of like that, and then and put it prospectively, a sub 60 pro individual is like a 215 in marathon, because the pros are doing the 202s, which is like a 50, like they're doing 54s, 55s, 53s. So to do a 59.99, you're like a 215 marathon runner. Now, does that mean, and that's just right now, that might change, because as more people flood to the sport, might make it a 220, 230. So that's not saying that anaerobically, aerobically, that the people who run a sub 60 can do a 215. I'm not saying that. I'm saying in the midst of the athletes in the sport and those who compete, when you put in perspective of the winners, what they do in both sports, to the people who are like fringe, they qualify but aren't quite in the top 15, that's where that number is. So yeah, I'd say that's probably, we also did the numbers on it. Like if you put in say like a chat GPT and you say like, what could these people realistically do in a marathon based on this, which is still like absolute guesswork. It's pretty accurate.
Dude, the best was when I was at BPN, I did a in-person podcast with, it was my second one with him. I had Kim Gottwald, I think is how you say his last name.
Yeah, how do you pronounce that last name?
It's Gottwald. I think
Nice.
Goldwald. I don't know.
Good job.
Gotta tap into my German heritage there. With Schluter, although it's Schluter.
Schluter. Yeah.
Anyways, I had him on the podcast right after Last Man Standing. Amazing, insane conversation. And then when I was in person for the premiere, had him on the podcast in Nick's studio again, which was great. And we did this hilarious thing where I asked ChatGPT in front of him to create a training plan for someone to try and beat Kim at Last Man Standing. And he was like so offended. He was like, you can put in any training plan. It won't beat me. He's like, I'll outrun ChatGPT.
Dude, it is amazing German. I'd be very curious as to what that would be.
The ChatGPT training plan?
I'd love to know.
It was, I had to, it was a little bland at first, which AI can be. And so I was like, yeah, step it up more. And yeah.
It's like run
but the Last Man Standing event is so, the hard thing about that is you can't train for it. Yeah, exactly. You can't train for it because if you, like, Zach Pograb, right? Yeah, like that dude respectfully was an idiot. And I would tell him this, so I love you, Zach, if you're listening. Ian ran 100 miles 4 weeks before, and it's like, on paper makes sense, but like you kind of left your race on the streets of New York City at 4 a.m. And you probably could have gone into the race maybe a little less confident, a little more scared, but then you just put that effort into the race. Because Kim he trains a lot, but he's not doing any crazy simulations because your body's wrecked for 4 weeks after it.
Yeah, it is the challenge like a Last Man Standing is different to obviously a 100-mile or ultra race in general, because ultra marathon, there's a finish line coming. For Leadville, I knew that I just had to run 100 miles. So I didn't have to run more than 100 miles. I didn't have to run anything. I had to hit that number. So I had a target to hit. Now, if you start at a start line and you tell people, just run, just keep running. And you never know when the stop is. And ultimately, you are battling someone else. Everything from your body language to how you show up, everything is part of call it the friendly competitive spirit. Because if you get to that start line before the other person does, you start running, you've already got a dub and you're in their head. And that's the thing. It's like, it's the ability, yes, to run far, but in its Last Man Standing, you never know when the finish line is. You never know.
What's fascinating to me is the body types. Like, Kim and Kendall are hunks of wood. You would not think, respectfully, I mean, I have a ton of respect for those guys. I don't mean that demeaningly, but it just, you wouldn't think that they could go as far as they go.
Dude, I think Nick just defies what fucking running does, to be honest, man. But like, he actually, case in point, if you look at my 2018 marathons to now, bro, like I used to dread I used to do the New York City Marathon. I do the New York City Marathon every single year, but I'd only train the 12 weeks prior to the marathon because I'm like, I've become this skinny, scrawny dude in the lead to the marathon. Now, I'm like, I just became so enamored with not making that happen, but I also train like across the board in other modalities, not just running, that my strength is so much better than, and holds me for my race. And it's interesting because you look at these ultra marathon runners in general, people think like, yeah, the people who run the fastest, yeah, they're whippets, like they are, like Mitch Ammons kind of thing, right? But then you get the next people coming through, like the next kind of group, and they're strong people. Like I can't do altitude. I'm so shit at altitude. I struggle respiratory at altitude. So when my coach was like, hey man, for this race, are you gonna live at altitude for 3 months? I'm like, no. He's like, cool. Well, forego any thought of you're gonna have the biggest challenge on the mountain, which is totally fine. We're just gonna build you like an ox. I showed up to that start line where my quads, my quads particularly, had never been so strong before, bro. And that's why like ultra marathon runners, like I didn't start getting sore until mile 80 So that's where you look at these dudes, they're like not skinny people anymore because the idea of strength is crucial.
For you, what's your perspective and take on guys like Nick or even yourself? Because I'm sure you go through this a little bit, where they're so dialed in that they can almost fluctuate from challenge to challenge. Like Nick's ability to run a fast endurance race or marathon and then just go right back into weightlifting and look like an absolute specimen is beyond me. And I think so unrealistic for the average Joe.
Yeah, I had a conversation with him like 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, you look at a squat bar and you just get big. Like you just look at it. Like, and he's like, I remember him being on the bike when we were at the gym, and he looked at I was training with Dearden, and you could tell he was like, fuck, I'm ready for this to be over. He didn't say it, but he's like, you could tell he's like, he just loved to be with his boys. You know what I mean? He's an anomaly. He is definitely an anomaly. Like for someone like him, for the size that he is, to be able to go from I put it down to his early nutrition. Like he's very dialed in on his nutrition, fundamental as it is. He is very dialed in on it. He talked on the podcast that I did with him. He's talked about having he had an eating disorder. He got so hectic at one point. But I think a lot of guys to particularly actually do that. They get so enamored with the numbers they overlook the actual means of why we're doing it. But if you look at people like that, you look at Hunter. Like Hunter is revolutionizing the sport of high rocks, and he had because of the size he is. Even the guy who just set the world record, Alex Ronkovic, he's a fellow on athlete. Dude, he's a big dude. He's not small. And I think what's interesting is a lot of it is coming down to nutrition. Because you think about it, the output could not be more. And we're talking people are training, call it 60-mile weeks while still lifting 3 to 4 times and doing 2 Metcon sessions, right? So your calorie expenditure is so high. And the only way to combat that would be eating a lot and eating the right stuff. So that's where I would suggest it would be completely nutrition-based, man. Like, I do think the importance of thinking about new supplements like creatine is on the rise. Like that's been a huge revolution. I also look at people understanding the hydration strategy has been really, really effective. People are sleeping more. Like you think about that, man, like sleep in general. I think people still neglect getting big because still neglect sleep for getting bigger. Like I sleep, dude. I'm up at 5:30. What time do I have to be in bed? I have to be in bed at 9, and I love it. Like it gets to 8 o'clock. Don't talk to me after 5 p.m. because I'm winding down.
Shoot you a text tonight at 6. Good to know.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think it's a combination of. I think everyone can actually achieve that. Focus on sleep, nutrition, despite the amount of activity we've got going on.
Who, in your opinion, is the most dialed in from a nutrition perspective? Like, would you choose Nick or would you choose Lindsey Vonn when you were working with her?
Nick.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think he's the most dialed in you've ever seen?
Well, just between those two as an example, LV was like, she ate whatever I gave her, but Nick doesn't need the direction. He knows. So like, LV she's one of the most inspiring individuals you will meet athletically, man. Like, imagine this: go jump in a car. Go ride like 70 miles an hour, open the car car door, jump out, break some bones, and then fix yourself, get back in that car and do the same thing 6 to 7 times. Like what that woman had in terms of fear was just crazy. She had no fear, man. And as a woman too, fucking cool. But Nick is like, he's built his business on showing how dialed in he is. And as a result, he built a supplement brand about how to apply that means of dialed. I think nutrition's psychological. It's not necessary. It's like, how do you show up for yourself in that way? How do you show up and make sure that it's one thing to buy the product, that's commitment. We still can't make you take it. You know, it's like, oh, I've got to make a smoothie. I'm like, yeah, you got to go make a fucking smoothie because you earned the right to fucking put that in your body after the workout you just did. So I think Nick's been dialed in. Dearden's very good. Like, honestly, he's great. Who's some other athletes I've worked with that are incredibly... I mean, Hunter's very dialed in too, man. Like, he really is. It's interesting, like, I just did a video with a guy called Jack Driscoll, who's, like, in that range between the 2:15 to 2:02 marathon runner for High Rocks. He just did a 56.
Wow.
Which is very quick. So he's like, he's top 24 in the world right now. You got to be top 15 to be in the elite. But his diet's pretty shit. And I'm like, bro, there's 9 places right there. But that also comes down from education. So a lot of people challenge the physical side of things, whereas you know, the intention to sleep, which I think athletes have dialed in sleep. They take naps and things like that. Like, I called Hunter one time. It was like, bro, I'm fucking about to have a nap. Piss off. I'll call you back later. I'm like, that's love right there. You know? So yeah, I think across the board, man, there's people who are super dialed in psychologically, and they apply these methods to really get their growth.
How much of an athlete having proper good nutrition in your mind comes down to planning and prep?
I honestly think it's everything. It's everything. Because it may not be the case where you have the ability to cook, but it removes impulsive decisions. And I talk about this by, like, every Sunday night when I plan out my week, you know, realistically, I have the same breakfast every single day like most people do. Sometimes I mix it up, but I always have my Powerball. Lunchtime, typically leftovers, or I'll make something, or I'll go get something. But dinner is the time for me to cook. Now, if I'm going out to dinner, or if I know I'm going out to dinner, I will account for that in that week. I mean, in the sense of the plan. I'm like, cool, well, I'm going to be going to dinner Thursday night, so I won't need to go buy any groceries. But also note that, like, if I want to make sure that I'm not eating until 7:30, which is late, which is realistic when I go out to dinner, because other people don't go to bed as early as I do, I'm going to make sure I have a shake in after my workout. Otherwise, I'm going to be waiting until like 8 o'clock to eat anything, which is not ideal. So by planning and knowing these situations, one, I'm able to make the food decisions that are important given the time. So if I know I'm running in the morning, that's easy. I know I go back and I've got my food set up. If I've got a workout in the afternoon and I'm either going to be coming home or I'm not, I make a decision based on where I am, what I can do. Sometimes it's like, well, maybe I'll just go to Juice Generation and get a smoothie there. Or maybe I'll go to Sweet Green. But I know I can make this decision based on where I got a lunch meeting today, and I don't research what's on the menu at all. I'm not like that. But at least I know that I can make a conscious decision of my food choices prior to my afternoon workout. So I think as an athlete, the planning is the biggest part, honestly. It sets the tone for knowing if you're not going to cook it, you know what you have available, and that means you're putting yourself first when it comes to making the right nutrition choices based on your workouts.
I want to ask you this. As a professional chef, are you less impressed when you go out to eat? Like, your bar's probably pretty high to be impressed. Is that right?
Yeah, dude. I go out to dinner, and my mates go like, "Are you going to work right now?" And I go, "Absolutely not." So like when I go out to dinner, like went to dinner last week, mates. And I love enjoying that moment with my friends. I don't enjoy, like, if I'm invited to a dinner from a chef who asked for my opinion, 100%, I will break that shit down. But I like to go out to dinner and enjoy myself. You know, I'm quite the person who, I like to be the glass half full all the time anyway. I'm an optimist. So when I eat, I want to enjoy it. And believe it or not, the way, like, if I go there and try to be critical, there's less enjoyment for me, right? Always negative. But if I'm optimistic about, oh, that's a fucking great sauce, or like, oh, this is just great fun with my friends, time's awesome. But when I'm asked to be, I will definitely be a critic, because that's what my friends want. They want feedback to improve. If a chef comes out and asks me a specific thing, and when I mean specific, it's like if they say, how was the meal, that's not specific. But he's like, did you like the way that we charred the broccoli with this? And like, if he wants that, I'm like, honestly, I never thought of that. Or maybe it's like, I personally wouldn't do it, but I fucking loved it. You know, like, or I can be critical and be like, you left it on the plancha for too long. You know what I mean? Like,
what percent of your meals do you think you enjoy when you go out to eat?
What meals do I enjoy?
What percent of like the meals out do you enjoy?
Oh, I mean, I would say, I'd say 80% or 85%. Okay. Yeah, I think most meals, man. It's like, I'm also living in New York City. I'm also, dude, like, I got a low bar. Like, when I say that, I just love my friend time. Like, some of my favorite meals is like, I got a pho spot underneath this building. I love that spot. It's like super easy, $17, like amazing pho, beef and brisket. Why? I can make that. No questions. The time it would take for me to make this, the deepness of that stock would be like 36 hours. I'm happy to go pay $70 and enjoy and support that business. There's been times where I went and got a burger recently from a place that like, it was a good burger. Was it the best burger? No. But it was told to be one of the best burgers. I'm like, it wasn't. But it was still enjoyable. It just wasn't the best burger. So I think a lot of how you frame it. Like I hear a lot of my friends, mates, they talk down to certain things. And I'm like, I think I probably have empathy because I know what it takes to get that there. Whereas they're like, this is shit. Like, well, it's a 7:30 on a Saturday night. There's no excuses. I'm just justifying. 7:30 on a Saturday night. There was 10 people at a table and they managed to get 9 out of 10 things. Like, you know, I'm not justifying. I'm just saying that's actually really fucking hard. And then they've got 40 other tables to deal with. So like, just relax a little bit.
That's crazy. Well, next time I see you or get you back on the podcast, I want to ask you more questions about that industry because I'm fascinated by it. I love food. Could never be a professional chef, but I appreciate it. And I'm a very curious person. So more questions another time. 2 words as a business, and then I'll let you leave me and make your coffee. First one, let's talk about Alma. Share it with the people. Recently started working with them. And in lieu of the sort of nutrition discussion today, I personally, I'm not paid to promote this, so this is genuine. I personally, since you put me onto it, I've really enjoyed using it, and I think it's a really easy tool that people can use to start eating more, eating better, compete with your friends. So floor is yours to share about this role in the company.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, so as Dom said, this company's called Alma. It's a personalized nutrition app. So where MyFitnessPal is part of that category, you know, I've always seen one of the biggest challenges I've had as an individual working one-on-one or sometimes 1 to 3 with athletes or high performers. I wanted to scale that opportunity. And so now with a certain algorithm and AI that we've built, Alma has the ability to personalize nutrition experiences. So if you're a weight loss client, weight loss individual, maybe going into the new year, that's what you want to do. You can simply talk to, not just type, you can talk to Alma by telling it what you ate throughout the day, which means you can do that in one sitting. You can do that every single meal if you want. And it will tell you based on that what you need more of, what you need less of. It has a full macro, micro tracker. And then the best part is it takes into account and then also provides suggestions. So, you know, it could be like, Dan, you were short on your protein by 30 grams today, and seems like you've had that trend for the last week. We suggest you have, you know, another scoop of BPN every day at this time, or simply add another chicken breast at the meal that you're having, blah, 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 blah. So that's not just weight loss, everything from wellness to tracking gut health, things like that. And I'm the chief brand officer. It's been a really big pleasure of being able to help people solve what I believe will be defiant in helping people understand their nutrition goals personally.
Final serious question for you. A lot of talk about training, nutrition, 2 things I love, as well as taking your wisdom from the incredible world-class athletes you've worked with. So let's distill it down and assume that the Olympic athletes are not listening. What are some, I won't put a number on it, but a few core principles you think athletes listening today can take away from this conversation and apply into their everyday life?
Yeah, I think planning, number one, Dom. Like, I think people, if they start planning at the top of the week, and the way I say planning, what do you do? It's like, you know, like realistically, do you have the same breakfast every day? Sweet, that's not going to change. Lunch, you may go to the same lunch place or one of the three, or you may make the same sandwich. So that's typically consistent or leftovers. I would say one of the biggest things is what you're going to have for dinner. And sometimes you just got the ability to make double, or sometimes you know that you're going to get back late, and so therefore you need to make sure you either have some prepared previously or you know what your options are where you are. I think that's the first thing. I'd also be conscious, and the second thing is like, when are your workouts? If you're working out in the morning, if you're working out in the afternoon, are you getting in the proteins and the carbs with minimal fat quickly? And that can be a shake. That's probably the most efficient way of doing it. So it can also just be fruit and eggs. Like, honestly, it could be as simple as that. But I think that, again, comes down to the planning. So where are you and where are you going to be around your workouts? Because that can be super intentional by the decisions you make on your nutrition. And then I think the third thing is, I've always said that when it comes to nutrition, flavor must win. You must enjoy it. Deliciousness is the number one rule of health. And if you can't have that, then there's no point. You're not going to keep it accountable. The fourth thing is cooking in general. If you're someone who doesn't cook but wants to, but gets deterred or intimidated by the idea of, making a mess, etc., I always come back to these core principles that you didn't tie your shoelace first time, every single time. You didn't run that time you just did on the track for the first time just by doing it one time. You have to get the reps in. And my way of doing this to people is like, pick a night that you're typically home every single week. It always tends to be Tuesdays. Everyone seems to be home Tuesday nights. And pick a recipe that you're keen on doing. The first night, do it the same every single Tuesday night for the first 3 weeks. The first time you do it, you will find it'll be the most expensive, it'll take the longest, and it'll have the most washing up. By the third time, you could be swiveling wine with one hand, minimal dishes, and because you've already bought most of the ingredients, like the spices and things like that, it'll be the cheapest you make it. And you'll be like, oh my God, I just made a meal 3 times. The third time it was much better. Why? Because you learnt from the first 2 times. Now, if you applied that to doing that, 6 to 7 times on other meals, it's crazy. There's a reason why you like your breakfast. 1, it's simple and easy and you do it all the time, right? Same thing applies to dinner. And the fifth thing is, I'd say, like, if you are interested in like tracking and not knowing, like, understanding your meals, use Alma. Like, really, that's why we built it there. So to understand what you're putting into your diet, what you should be having, it's pretty revolutionary.
Final question. Go ahead.
I said 5 key principles right there.
There we go. Appreciate it, man. Final question for you. Christmas season, recording this the 10th. Hit me with favorite Christmas song, Christmas movie.
Oh, dude, Mistletoe by Justin Bieber. I sing that shit all the time. Like, it could be that or Feliz Navidad. I put this on my story the other day. I was dancing in New York City to Feliz Navidad. Christmas movie. Holy shit, there's so many. I mean, fuck. Oh, dude, I can't pick one. Okay, Elf is pretty good. Fuck, Elf's great, actually. Home Alone 2. Yeah.
There's your New York plug.
Yeah, dude, straight up.
I love it, man. Dan, thank you for the time, as always, the wisdom. I always appreciate and benefit from it. I know others do as well. Keep crushing, man.
Appreciate you, dude.